So imagine this, a multi-decade, totally cinematic underdog story. We're talking about an entire region of the world just absolutely obsessed with a sport, but somehow they find themselves systematically locked out of the biggest tournament on Earth for, well, over half a century. But then they flip the script. Through a wild mix of geopolitical ambition, staggering financial investment, and honestly, just sheer willpower. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking the incredible true story of how Arab football shattered decades of marginalization to literally conquer the world stage. We're going to dive into the billion-dollar master plans and the specific rule changes that triggered a massive geopolitical shift in global sports. It's a fascinating ride, so let's jump right in. But first, consider this. One of the most surprising, kind of paradoxical facts in modern sports. Think about Mohamed Salah. He's easily one of the greatest players in the English Premier League, right? A total global icon, 4 golden boots, league titles, guys even singing his own chants in the stands. But on the international stage, he has only made a single FIFA World Cup appearance. Just one, back in 2018 for Egypt. And it's not just him. Riyad Mahrez of Algeria faces the exact same reality. A trophy case absolutely stuffed with European hardware, but only one World Cup appearance to his name. So it really makes you wonder, why do global superstars who completely dominate European leagues just seemingly vanish when the World Cup rolls around? Part 1. The World Cup Paradox. Part 2. Decades on the margins. Okay, to really grasp how big of a deal this is, we gotta step back in time for a second. When European colonizers first brought football to the Middle East and North Africa, way back in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they actively excluded local populations from playing. So, what did the Arab communities do? They established their own clubs. These became powerful tools for resistance and national pride. Simply stepping onto the global stage became this huge, vital marker of independence. But man, the systemic hurdles were immense. Get this. Egypt literally missed the ship to the very first World Cup in 1930 because of a storm. They did make the 1934 tournament, but as FIFA grew, the organization made the path nearly impossible for them. Historically, FIFA severely limited the qualification slots for Asian and African teams. Basically, due to a deep-seated Eurocentrism and, a hesitation to dilute the competitive balance, FIFA would force emerging Arab teams to play against established European powerhouses, just to fight for a tiny handful of slots. In 1950, Syria was blocked by Turkey. In 1954, Egypt got crushed by Italy. In 1962, Morocco actually won their African group, but then they were forced into a playoff against Spain. The path was just way too narrow. Part 3. Breaking the monopoly. So things finally hit a breaking point with the 1966 African nations boycott. It was a massive risk, but it worked. It forced FIFA to finally budge and grant automatic qualification slots to Africa and Asia. And once they had a foot in the door, Arab teams wasted absolutely no time making history. In 1978, Tunisia completely shocked the world. They scored 3 stunning goals against Mexico and became the very first Arab country to win a match at a World Cup. As the tournament expanded in 1982 and then again in 98, these teams became regulars. They kept advancing deeper and deeper. Algeria pushed Germany to the absolute brink in 2014. And then we saw the ultimate breakthrough. In 2022, Morocco dismantled Spain and Portugal to become the first Arab nation to ever reach the World Cup semifinals. But here's the thing, this incredible surge, it wasn't just a lucky streak. Part 4. The billion-dollar master plan. Back in the early 2000s, ambitious Arab governments had a major realization. The World Cup wasn't just a sporting event anymore. It was a giant global stage. And to project immense economic and political power on that stage, they launched a highly calculated, heavily funded strategy to essentially conquer the sport. They deployed 3 distinct, state-backed tactics to build world-beating teams completely from scratch. Step 1. Recruiting their foreign-born diaspora. Step 2. Naturalizing foreign players. And Step 3. Investing astronomical amounts of money into domestic academies and leagues. Let's break down exactly how each of these 3 tactics played out, because honestly, they fundamentally altered the international rules of the game. All right, so tactic number 1 relied on a massive nationality loophole. See, for decades, FIFA's rules stated that if a player appeared for a European youth national team, they were locked in for life. That meant incredibly talented players of Arab descent growing up in places like France or Germany, well, they were captured by Europe before Arab scouts could even get to them. But in 2004, Algeria aggressively lobbied FIFA to change this exact rule. They wanted to allow under-21 players to switch their national allegiances. And they won. This was a total game changer. Suddenly, this massive, totally untapped talent pool was unlocked. Moroccan scouts, for example, started approaching young, gifted players all across Western Europe, pitching them on their ambitious projects and recruiting them back to play for their ancestral nations. Then you have the second tactic, which was all about rapid citizenship. This was deployed primarily by Qatar and the UAE. Now, instead of relying on ancestral ties, they recruited talented players who had zero previous connection to their countries, simply by granting them fast-track citizenship. In a really short time frame, Qatar made an Uruguayan, a Brazilian, and a Ghanaian eligible to wear their national colors. And while this strategy was incredibly effective at immediately boosting their squad's competitive level, it also sparked intense debate on the world stage. It was so disruptive, in fact, that it eventually forced FIFA to step in and rewrite its rulebook once again, tightening up those residency requirements to slow the practice down. $220 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That staggering figure represents what Qatar alone spent to host the 2022 World Cup, which, by the way, was the first ever held in the Arab world. But the sheer financial gravity of this third tactic wasn't just about hosting a tournament. Countries like Saudi Arabia poured absolute billions into cutting-edge football academies. We're talking pristine pitches, advanced sports science facilities, and world-class coaching, all designed to turn local prodigies into global pros. On top of that, they offered colossal contracts to international superstars to come play in their domestic leagues, which directly raised the competitive standard for their own homegrown players. So you're probably wondering, did this unprecedented, multi-pronged strategy actually work? Well, just look at the numbers. Between 2015 and 2022, the median FIFA ranking of Arab teams catapulted from 110th all the way up to 87th, with several of them actually breaking into the top 50. And the return on investment extended way beyond the football pitch, too. After their historic 2022 semifinal run, Morocco officially dethroned Egypt as the #1 travel destination in all of Africa. The global spotlight was finally shining brightly on the region, and they were perfectly positioned for the next massive opportunity. Part 5. Expanding the field. That monumental opportunity arrived when FIFA announced they were expanding the 2026 tournament to 48 teams. Under these new rules, Africa and Asia would now have 17 guaranteed slots, plus some additional paths through intercontinental playoffs. And sitting right at their absolute competitive peak, these heavily invested Arab nations were perfectly primed to strike. The result? Basically a perfect storm, where an unprecedented 8 Arab teams seized the moment to qualify. Jordan struck first, locking in their very first World Cup appearance. The North African heavyweights, Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria, they cruised right through, totally powered by their European-born diaspora. Saudi Arabia and Qatar easily qualified, really showcasing the power of their academy systems and those naturalization strategies we talked about. Egypt secured their spot, led by a highly motivated Mo Salah, and then, in just an incredibly emotional twist, Iraq fought their way through a grueling qualification path to return to the World Cup for the first time in 40 years. Part 6. A united Arab fandom. So the master plan succeeded, right? The slots were secured. But this monumental success isn't just a temporary peak, it's a foundation. The really pivotal question hanging over the upcoming 2026 tournament is, how far can these 8 teams actually go? Because the expectations, they aren't just about showing up anymore, they are about dominating. Analysts and fans are noting that Morocco isn't just a participant, they're expected to be the favorites in almost any matchup they play. Teams like Jordan are proving to be incredibly cohesive, and a lot of people believe they're going to be the dark horse that really surprises the world. The bar hasn't just been raised, it's been permanently reset. And we know for sure that this momentum is sustainable because the success is trickling down to literally every level of the sport. Those billion-dollar academies, yeah, they're working. Just recently, Egypt's under-23 squad fought their way all the way to the semifinals of the 2024 Paris Olympics. Morocco made history by becoming the first Arab team to reach the Women's World Cup, advancing all the way to the knockout rounds. And the Moroccan under-20 men's squad, they completely shocked the globe by defeating Argentina. The talent pipeline is flowing, guaranteeing that these Arab nations are going to remain a fierce competitive force for decades to come. But out of all of this, here's arguably the most fascinating cultural takeaway. In standard global football culture, when a team gets eliminated, their fans don't just start cheering for their neighbors, right? Like English fans certainly aren't putting on French jerseys if they get knocked out. But pan-Arab solidarity is completely different. Because of their shared history, their shared culture, and the decades they spent collectively marginalized by the international football community, Arab fans immediately adopt their neighbor countries. It's amazing to watch. When one Arab team falls, their fans seamlessly shift all of their support to whichever Arab team is still standing. I want to leave you with this powerful thought that perfectly captures this whole phenomenon. One fan noted, It means that any Arab team that goes deep in a World Cup doesn't just carry a country, it carries a whole region. After nearly a century of being sidelined, these 8 teams aren't just playing for their own flags in 2026. They're representing the vindication, the resilience, and the united passion of an entire culture. When one of them scores, the whole region wins. With an entire culture united behind them, the question for 2026 isn't just if they can compete. It's whether the world is finally ready for an Arab nation to win it all. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the pitch.